So now that we understand, it's very important to master or to understand the chemical nature of hormones. Let's try to get into specific groups. So we now need to get the details of the main groups. I mean, the protein or peptides, the steroids, the catecholamines, and the iodothyronine. What are the examples of the hormones in each group? So number one, we talked about proteins and polypeptides or peptides hormone, because you know that these are amino acids. If it's short, it's a peptide. If it's very long, it is a polypeptide or it is a protein. So they're just the same. They have the same characteristics. So proteins and polypeptides. So all the hormones of the anterior and posterior pituitary. So the hormones that are produced by the anterior and posterior pituitary, the hormones that are produced by the pancreas. Now we are talking about insulin and glucagon, the parathyroid hormones. These are proteins and polypeptide in nature. Group number two are the steroids. And the easy way to understand steroids are all the hormones of reproduction plus the hormone of the adrenal cortex. So you do have the hormones produced by the adrenal cortex, the hormones produced by the ovaries, the hormones produced by the testes, and the hormones produced by the placenta. So the easy way to understand that is the hormones of reproduction and some of the hormones produced by the adrenal cortex. So group number three are the catecholamines. These are also easy to understand. These are the hormones that are produced by the adrenal medulla, and there are only two: epinephrine and norepinephrine, or adrenaline and noradrenaline. So there are only two. And group number four are what are known as iodothyronines, and these are basically thyroid hormones, T4 and T3. So these are known as iodothyronines. So looking at this, you see four main groups. But as I said before, in other textbooks, you might find only three groups. And in other textbooks, they actually combine catecholamines and iodothyronine simply because these are actually derived from amino acid tyrosine, and they call them derivatives of amino acid tyrosine. So in this textbook, you will actually have proteins and polypeptide as one group, steroid as the second group, and then you will have derivatives of amino acid tyrosine as the third group. So the third groups will actually have the catecholamines and iodothyronine. So another important point we need to note, we can actually group these hormones in two main groups based on their water solubility. So there are hormones that are water soluble, and the hormones that are water soluble, a very good example actually, the proteins and polypeptides. These are water soluble. This is another important point which can explain a lot of characteristics of hormone that you'll see later. So just know that protein hormones are water soluble, but also the catecholamines, most of them are water soluble. So we basically have these two groups as water soluble hormones: the proteins and polypeptides and the catecholamines. So by just understanding that, you can actually tell a lot of characteristics of these hormones just by knowing that they are water soluble. We will talk about it later. But also you have lipid soluble. A good example of lipid soluble hormones are actually the steroids, because the steroids are derived from cholesterol, so they are lipid soluble. But also the thyroid hormones are somehow lipid soluble. So later on you will see that thyroid hormones share a lot of characteristics with steroid hormones because of lipid solubility. So protein hormones share a lot of characteristics with catecholamines because they are somehow water soluble. So these are the different groups that you need to understand very well, and they will be able to simplify a lot of characteristics of these hormones. So what you need to know when someone talks about insulin, you know that it is a polypeptide hormone, then you can tell a lot about its characteristics, knowing that it's a water soluble then you can tell a lot that we are going to discuss later.